Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews. I recently had posted a video of my recent Dinosaur finds, and in that video I had shown you guys a few of the Resaurus figures, and there was quite a bit of interest in those, and a few people had asked if I would review them, so here we are now. We are going to take a look at each and every one of these in separate reviews, but we're going to start with the Giganotosaurus, which was the very first one I had shown in that video. So basically what these figures are is they're almost kind of like the Beasts of the Mesozoic figures, years before the Beasts of the Mesozoic figures were a thing, because they are very articulated dinosaurs. As you can see, there is a significant amount of articulation in the legs and everything, and that was kind of their big selling point, was how articulated they are. However, one thing that is a downside as far as these figures go is I have the hardest time trying to actually balance them out and position them in a way that they can stand without falling. They did initially come with bases, and the base kind of had like a footprint type of a look to it. I don't know if they all had that same style of base, but I think, now if I lean him against something, he's kind of got his tail leaning on the wall, so he's balancing out now. But I do believe that they all came with bases initially, and unfortunately, as far as these figures go, when I got them, they did not have bases, so I'm going to, I think, repaint my doubles, and when I do that, I'm going to have to create custom bases for them probably, and try to put them in some sort of a realistic stance. But again, like I said, mine here, they don't have bases. I'm going to keep one set of originals, and that would be the one we're looking at today as far as this Giganotosaurus goes, so let's get a closer look. So starting up here at the head sculpt, you can see that the head sculpt of the Giganotosaurus is really quite nice. There is some decent detail included. I wouldn't say that it's any type of sculpt or detail like you would actually see on the current, more up-to-date Beasts of the Mesozoic figures. However, it does definitely sport some very nice sculpt and detail overall. It's a kind of a little muted, I think, but not really so much. For the most part, it does look really, really nice. Of course, with it being an articulated figure, it does have the articulated jaw, which when you look inside does sport, again, some pretty nice sculpt work, honestly. It really looks beautiful inside the mouth. A little hard to see, but what you can see in there is really beautifully done. It's painted with like a purplish coloration, which again is a fairly realistic color, something I could see inside the mouth of a dinosaur being. The teeth, for the most part, look pretty good. You can see there's like a little sloppiness or something, some extra rubber, it looks like, on the teeth right there that maybe I'll have to clip off. But for the most part, they look pretty good. They're a bright white, which is probably not the most realistic color choice, but considering how old these figures are, I can let that slide. The coloration of the dinosaur is like a black up here on the top of the head and a green for the lower jaw. There's not too much as far as coloration going on or skin tone or anything like that. It's all fairly basic as far as the coloration goes, but it does look good what is included. The eye is really perfectly painted, has like a purple and a pink and a white in there, so it's got a few different variations of color there included, and it does look really nice on both sides. You can see a few areas of paint chipped off of mine, because again, these are pretty old figures and they are second hand, so they're not going to be in perfect shape. As you start to move down the neck, you can pick up on some very nice wrinkling and skin folding going on in the neck. Some spots start to appear here as far as a black spotting goes, and then you can see a transition to a brown, a dark brown, and then like a lighter, almost khaki color here, and that's kind of outlined with a trim of the same type of brown that's up on the top, and then the underside of the neck is that green, which you can see also sports some fairly nice sculpt work as well, as far as the wrinkling of the skin in the throat area goes. When you do get back into the upper part of the dinosaur, you can see the shoulder blade very nicely protruding from the skin. The skin texture looks really nice, lots of creases in the skin all throughout the stomach region, and there is just a ton of skin wrinkling going on here in the lower part of the stomach, giving it a very realistic look and actually quite beautiful appearance to it. The arms look really nice. They are also beautifully sculpted and have very nice, very fine skin texture going on. And then you get out to the hands, it transitions to like a blackish coloration, and the nails are like a whitish kind of a color. They look pretty nice. There's no real sloppiness or anything to the paint application there. Then as you start to run along the body, you can kind of now see this like light khaki brown striping down into the body, and it looks very flashy, but again, at the same time, a fairly realistic look, something I could see the dinosaur actually being. Nice skin wrinkling going on up here, and beautiful creases in the skin all throughout the thigh. Very nice musculature as well. The muscle tone is really beautifully defined, as is down here in the calf area. You can see the kneecap and everything. And then as you transition down into the foot, it turns to a blackish color, and again the same white color for the nails, similar to what you see on the hands. It does look really nice though. Unfortunately, it doesn't appear as though the dew claw is painted, which is a little bit of a depressing down point, but not too bad. Again, you can see where it was connected here with the tail, and it's starting to now break. It doesn't look very good, and that just is something that comes with age, because the tail actually has a rubbery reel feel type to it. So I think it just maybe started to crease and break in this area. You can kind of see the sloppy glue that was included here when it came to connecting the tail in the first place. Nice wrinkling though behind the thigh, and the actual skin texture of the tail looks really nice, and then it starts to gradually transition to this blackish color here at the tip of the tail. The other side looks exactly the same as what you saw on the previous side, because the dinosaur is in a very neutral position, and you could just pose it however you would like, so it looks pretty much exactly the same as you see on the opposing side. The detail on the underside looks really nice as well, so it's pretty much the same as you saw on the other side, but it looks really quite nice. As far as the size goes, for the length, you were looking at about 14 inches or about 36 centimeters, and for a height, again, this would really depend on how upright you want your Giganotosaurus, but I feel like this is probably a fairly decent, sort of a realistic pose. So if we go for there, you're looking at about 5.5 inches or about 14 centimeters, somewhere in that range. For a size comparison, there is the Papo T-Rex, and you can now see that this Giganotosaurus is definitely a pretty sizable figure, because it really is quite big, even in comparison to the Papo Rex, who is pretty large himself. You can obviously tell looking at the two together that you don't have quite the Papo amount of sculpt and detail included when it came to the Resaurus figures, but what is included is definitely beautiful for its time, and this should help give you a pretty good idea that these figures are definitely decently sized. Again, as I said, one of the selling points is the articulation of these figures. So if we look at the Giganotosaurus, we've got the articulated jaw, which I did say opens actually really wide if you would like it to. You've got articulation here in the head to move the head around a little bit. You also have articulation here in the neck, where the base of the neck connects to the body. You have articulation in the arms, but only at the shoulder joint here. You don't have it in the elbow or anything like you would have on a Beast of the Mesozoic figure. You also have the articulation of the knees, and then down here in the ankle. And the tail is just a rubber reel feel, and it has kind of a similar thing to like the Rebor figures, where you have the wire inside that can kind of keep it in position, but it doesn't work too well. It's kind of, I guess, run its course and doesn't really stay put too well anymore. Regardless, for a figure of its time, this thing is really beautiful when it comes to the sheer amount of articulation. You didn't really get that kind of articulation with figures when this was actually made, so it was really quite impressive. And the overall sculpting was also really impressive, not to mention the species that they chose, because Giganotosaurus for that time period was pretty obscure dinosaur that you didn't really see too much get figures, so it was really exciting for a Giganotosaurus in general to be made, but also giving it the beautiful appearance that it does have, and all that articulation was a huge selling point when it came to the popularity of this figure. The paint application on this looks pretty good, but it's a little, kind of generic. It doesn't really look super realistic. It's kind of a realistic looking coloration, but the application of it is pretty generic. It almost looks like a child drew just the stripes on, but it's not bad. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing with the way that this is colored, because again, it's a fairly old figure. They weren't being painted quite as beautifully as you see on more modern figures, so the paint application that is included is fairly nice, again, for its time. It's just maybe not the most realistic look, but at the same time, it does still look fairly decent. The sculpt work is really, really nice. Again, as I said, it's maybe not up to par with like Collect Day, Safari, Papo, anything like that of current dinosaur models, but it is still really beautifully sculpted and is a fairly realistic looking Giganotosaurus compared to the type of dinosaur toys you were getting back then. So this, without question, is a very cool figure. It's something that I was really excited about finally owning myself, and something that I suggest anyone interested in definitely seeks out, because it is a great addition to any collection and is something that I really quite treasure having in my collection. It's a beautiful piece of dinosaur toy history, and this model overall is really quite awesome. Even if it is a bit dated, it's still a beautiful Giganotosaurus figure. So if you do want to buy one, I will actually try to find a link on eBay, because like I said, these things are so old, they're long discontinued. You can't really buy them new anymore unless you're lucky enough to find somebody selling one new in the box on eBay, but I will try to find one for you on there. Link you guys in the description for anybody that's interested in purchasing one. So check the description, but before you do that, don't forget to please like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell to be notified of any future videos, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.